So I never quite understood how things like carrots and lettuce, like, well, where do the seeds come from? How do we, well, you know, you see a head of lettuce, but where are the seeds in the lettuce? I never understood things like that, like how plants reproduce. Like, what happens is they eventually, a separate part of the plant will, what we call bolt and flower and go to seed. But now you can kind of understand how that happens, how things, how that works in nature.
I think it's important, yes, to raise and eat your own food. I think the raising is part of the relationship with nature, with soil, and the cooperation with it is nearly as important as the quality of the food you produce. Obviously, a fresh tomato, a fresh sprig of asparagus has got a whole different flavor from what you might find that's been shipped across the country. And that's a tremendous benefit. But I also think it's the whole experience of planting, producing, harvesting, consuming. I think it should be part of our natural rhythms.
Yes, I'm Cindy Shea. I live a block away from here and I've been working in the garden for the last 3 summers.
My name is Molly Mikan. I'm a graduate student at NC State University in marine science, and I moved from Colorado, so kind of new to the area.
My name is Stephen Brooks. I am a librarian at UNC.
My name is Justin Telich. I moved here from Raleigh after grad school, and Carrboro is a great place.
Yeah, so this is Liana and I'm Evelyn. Well, Liana is going to start kindergarten in the fall.
My name is Bob Weichert. I live over in Chapel Hill.
My name is Alice. Well, I live right down the street here in Carrboro, and I love to garden, and this was just an amazing thing to find, you know, that there was so much space here and that there's so many people involved.
As I said, I live nearby, so I take walks in the neighborhood, and I had known this had come in. The first year it was installed, it was only half of the current bed space, and then it was expanded the next year to now include 52 beds, and then last year we put in an orchard as well, so we have fruit trees. So I had seen the garden growing over time, literally and figuratively, and wanted to participate. So I started coming out and discovering that people here were wonderful to work with. I love being outside, getting physical activity, and I learned so much from people who were working in the garden. We have such a range, it's fantastic. We have everything from asparagus to zucchini. We have chard and mustard and lettuce and beets and raspberries and blackberries and carrots and fennel and arugula. And I can keep going.
Well, we grow all year round. So we grow everything from greens right now in the springtime. We're starting to get some summer fruits in, like tomatoes, and we'll have squash and cucumbers.
We grow all kinds of food. There's fruit trees, and there's blackberry bushes and blueberry bushes. We just transplanted some fig trees a couple weeks ago. And then there's some asparagus beds, so those are all perennials. And then I think today they're transplanting some tomatoes, and I'm working on weeding chard bed right here. And then it just turns over seasonally. So peas and beans and lettuces throughout the winter, herbs. It's really informal. We share all of this space here, which is really unique, I think, to this garden. Other community gardens that I've visited, usually you have your own plot, and everybody has their own space that they work in. Here it's all communal, and it's open to anybody in the community.
Everyone works together on planting, on planning, on harvesting, on watering. So we all kind of share in the responsibilities and share in what we take out of it as well.
We try to make up a plan that will be where we want things to go in each bed over the course of a year in an attempt to rotate crops so that we're doing it organically, so we're not going to add a lot of chemicals to supplement. So you want beans to do some nitrogen fixing before you put lettuce in the next year. And so the way it functions is that we try to keep the seasons rotating and the beds rotating so that we have something always coming in and something always being planted, and then just the requirement to maintain, to keep the weeds down, to keep the water in. Having gardened a good bit before I came here, it's less about how much gardening I've learned than how much I've learned about how important it is to people who come out for the very first time, and how important it is to try to help others learn about how to grow things and how much benefit there is. So you may provide them with some food in the very first visit so that they get hooked. You may want to show them a few techniques for how to plant things, so that they realize that it's not something that's beyond their capacity.
I guess this is my third time coming out to the community garden. My wife came out a few weeks ago and really enjoyed it, and then brought me and my daughter along the next week, and the three of us were all able to work in the garden. There are a few things that I've really enjoyed about working in the garden here. One is just having something to move me around and take my mind off of things. Another is a chance to contribute in my community. The first time I came out here, the big thing that kept me coming back was the immediate payoff, in that you get to go and you turn earth and that kind of stuff, and you go home with a bag of some other produce that's already been grown in the garden, and so you don't have to wait months and months and months for your initial labor to pay off.
I just felt that something was missing after years of gardening and thinking I could just do away with that. I mean, it's like, you know, it feeds your soul. It's an important part of life, and when you're used to gardening and you have a shady porch, you know, something was definitely missing, so I'm glad I found this place. I've been doing a lot of hand weeding, and it looks like there's a lot of heavy work to do with the soil being this wet. It's kind of good that it's wet because it's easy to pull weeds and easy to turn over, but you know, it's muddy work.
So Bob, I think the last time I was here, somebody had mentioned that there's a compost bin that we can actually bring compost to.
Sure.
And dump it?
Yeah.
In that black?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I usually take my compost out to a friend's compost pile.
This compost gets enough raw material that every 5 years there's going to be 6 inches of compost in the bottom. It's just...
We could add something like grass or something to hasten the process.
So would it help to bring it here or no?
Yes.
You'd want more?
Yes.
In a single bed in the garden, we might get, on average, probably two harvests out of it. Maybe like if we do a spring, we might get another fall harvest, or if we do a winter, maybe we'll do a summer. So probably every 3 to 6 months, we'll change over a bed. And to prep a bed, we'll turn it over. We'll add any organic material that we might have to add to it, any other amendments that we might have for pH or nutrient, such as lime or wood ash or chicken or feather meal, are some of those.
All I'm doing right now is turning under a cover crop that we put in last fall. Sometimes the cover crop is called green manure because it has the same effect of bringing nutrients in by growing all winter long when you wouldn't be growing other things. We keep experimenting with what works in this setting while trying to and while avoiding completely any chemicals or any either fertilizers or pesticides or herbicides. So we then get cooperation from worms and microorganisms that help us break it down.
Ooh, we like the sunshine too.
Can I help you plant these? Do you have a straight row or alternate or three?
We got 10, so there's going to be what, 5 on the side.
5 on the side.
And I'm going to hide the little ones in the middle, so the big ones define the bed.
All right.
Beautiful, Bob.
And then Molly takes care of it. This is the last time I touch this bed. I just add exactly the amount of water I want.
Wow.
And that way they don't leak
Yeah.
into my boxes or on my wife's rug.
Get them all in one place.
You are the smaller ones.
In the middle?
Yeah, kind of
Okay.
flanked by the big guys.
Right. Okay. I know there's a trowel over there.
I think they're probably all approaching
Space
about
them
the
out,
end of the
because
day.
here you go. I mean, these are all of them.
Alice, I want to give you some of this stuff before
To
you...
put around the plant?
Yeah.
Or to put mix in with
Put-
it?
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Put it in the hole. When it's so wet like this, it's hard to know, is this clay?
It is clay.
You know, and it just doesn't
It's-
seem like it because it's not dry.
Yeah, it's almost all clay.
It's really important for people to connect to their food, whether they grow it or not, to understand where it comes from, how it's produced, whether it's done in a humane, environmentally sound way or not. A lot of kids, for example, have no idea where food comes from. They think it comes from the grocery store. And if people don't understand natural systems and how food is produced, then they're not going to be invested in protecting natural areas and protecting local economic systems and farmers. Children do participate in both this garden and the garden next door. The garden next to us is more of a traditional community garden where people have their own plots, and that's families with young kids who grow their own food. Some of the families come out with their children. It's great when kids are in the garden.
My daughter really enjoys coming to the garden too. I think that my wife is the one who can come out here and work for 2 hours and not be fazed. I think my daughter's and my time limits are a little shorter, generally speaking. But my daughter, she does great. The first time I came out here last week and didn't really know what to do. I had brought my daughter with me, and we had brought our compost from the kitchen. We started composting now, and my daughter Madeline showed me where the compost was. She showed me where the watering cans were, and we read the instructions best we could and watered some things that we thought needed to get watered. But she picks up fast what's going on in the garden, and she really likes contributing to it. She's gardened with her grandparents a lot every summer.
So we now have a plot in the Orange County Partnership for Young Children Garden, which is for families that have children that are, I think it's under 6 years old, I forget exactly. And we found out about it through flyers that we saw. They have a garden over by Carrboro Elementary School that we saw as well, so we knew that it was there. And here we get to just have our own plot. And the way this garden works is that each family has its own plot. So this one that I'm sitting against is ours. Do you want to tell them what are we growing? Say it to the camera.
We have strawberries, and there's a bunch of them that are they're little green strawberries.
What did we plant today? What kind of seeds did you plant? Those first ones that were yours from the birthday party.
Sunflowers.
Yeah, we just planted sunflower seeds. Do you like raising our own vegetables?
Yep.
Yeah? Why do you like it?
Because you get to plant and then pick the ones you plant, and they'll still be growing, and you get to see the ones you planted.
Okay. So you like seeing the food grow from when it's a seed to when it's something you can eat? How much watering do you do?
A little.
Just a little bit of watering? What do you like to do best?
I like to do the projects.
You like the projects that they do when there's someone from the staff here. Is that right? Like the coloring or the gathering seeds, right? That was fun. Or you made spinach roll-ups.
So that garden over there next to us is individual plots, and families take care of them. The relationship, we did a potluck a couple weeks ago, and we worked together on that. We're trying to, any members from the neighboring garden who age out, which is when their children reach a certain age, they're no longer eligible to have a plot there. We're trying to encourage them to come over here. I just always like it when people bring new ideas. It's always fun. You know, we have, you know, basics that we do in the garden, basic crops that are grown, but it's always fun when someone comes in with a new idea of how to grow something, maybe a particular crop they want to grow. It's always fun to try and learn. I mean, this is great to feed us in a way, but we're not completely sustainable here. In a way, it's a learning process too, so it's kind of take what you can out of the garden and maybe then run with it as well. So I've learned a lot through the garden, and it's nice when people bring fresh ideas.
The one thing that really jumped out at me was the possibility of growing hops. I've made some of my own beer, and I think it would be that would be some incentive to keep coming regularly and work hard on this garden would be getting to contribute to growing hops.
One of our members wanted to experiment with winter crop, and so he had covered tents. And so we've been eating lettuce and spinach and red beets already, and that was stuff that wintered over. And now we're putting in the lettuces, the radishes, and the carrots, and some potatoes.
I think the soil here gets a lot of love and attention, so I think that makes the food better. I mean, I shop a lot at the farmers market, so I think that food is pretty similar to what we grow out here, but you just have more of a connection to your food when you actually are working the soil and harvesting it yourself. So, I mean, it seems like there's a lot of differences with store-bought food when you don't know when it was harvested or where it came from, or you know, what pesticides or practices were used to grow that food.
We had some issues about a year ago. We started seeing deer tracks around here, and you can see where they like to munch on certain things. So we had to reinforce the fence and make sure that it was at least 8 feet high all the way around, and to keep any critters out. We've had pests, and I've actually learned a little bit more about that. It's been another learning little aspect from the garden. I've learned about certain pests. For example, with squash, you have issues with beetles boring into the roots, and you can see where they lay eggs on the leaves, so you can kind of be aware of that and try to contain that. It's nothing you can really completely manage, but you can at least get a little more life out of the crop if you're aware of it. We've had issues with some mildew on basil in the past, so I'm able to detect those kind of things and at least catch them in the early stages. So, yeah.
But no matter how meticulously you plan it, something's going to come up that you didn't expect. And it's those things that are usually the most exciting, you know, to find something that wasn't supposed to be there or moves over into another bed. It's never going to be an exact, you know, it's not something that's controllable, but that's the beauty of it, you know, to watch, you know, what nature does on its own. You know, it's the joy of doing this. Well, I just know from my own experience with my own backyard garden that tomatoes that I allow to ripen on the vine as opposed to on your windowsill or in a paper bag, you know, that they seem to be sweeter and juicier, and so I'm hoping that because the way this is laid out and there's no shade, that things will be able to ripen. I mean, for me, that's the difference. There must be other things, but that's what I'm familiar with, of why it would taste better and, you know, be healthier than something you buy in the grocery store.
So far, my favorite thing to eat from the garden, we haven't had any of the asparagus yet, but I'm looking forward to trying some of that. So far, we've picked a few beets, and they have been really interesting. I had never appreciated their sweetness before. So I think that's the most interesting thing that we've picked out of the garden.
I have fallen in love with all the greens that we're growing. I didn't really know much about kale and collards and all the different types of arugula. I've really learned a lot about there's more than just iceberg and romaine lettuce. We grew fennel one year. I wasn't a big fan of the fennel. Oh, I couldn't get the flavor. I wasn't a big fan of the licoricey, that flavor, that anise flavor.
It's amazing the difference. The asparagus here is so fresh and tender and mild versus the store-bought, which I also like. It just has a much denser, almost bitter, not unpleasant, but totally different flavor. I find that with lettuce as well. The local lettuce is great, and the beet greens, that's something I really enjoy, and the beets. When food is fresher, it's much more flavorful.
I think okra, actually, last season, because I just moved here. We don't like okra. And it's so big in North Carolina, so it was just fun to always have fresh okra and to be forced to figure out what to do with it. And the asparagus, but we haven't really harvested that much of it, so.
I do cook. Well,
Yesterday.
Yesterday, I helped Mommy make pizza.
It's great eating fresh food too. It's so nice to be able to come to the garden and then go home that same afternoon and fix a meal.
I like to cook, and in the summer, you know, it's always nice to have herbs and vegetables that are fresh, and if you've grown it yourself, you know, even better.
Well, I've been doing this since I grew up with the Victory Garden book at the end of the Second World War. Back then you raised your own food because you needed the food. And so we ate well simply because we had to. Now you still need to eat well, even if you can afford to go down and buy stuff that's not quite as good for you.
We're really lucky here in North Carolina to have such a long growing season. And so it only makes sense to me to at least eat food that is grown locally as opposed to shipping it in from all over the country or the world. And so as much as you can grow, or we can grow ourselves here in the community and eat, I think it makes most sense economically and environmentally. So. I try to support sustainable agriculture and support local farmers and organic produce because to me it just makes more sense to grow food on small scale and in a way that's in harmony with the rest of the environment, and I think it's possible, so I think it's important to try to support those beliefs.
I think it's just a wonderful concept. I mean, I think we're all going to have to start to think about that more and more. And this is a great example of what can be done. Everyone would like to become more self-sufficient, and this is certainly a way to do it. But this garden, because each family does not have its own plot and you take care of your space, is really, I don't know, interesting. We'll see how it goes, how all that's going to work.
Participation at times. You know, we don't have individual plots here, so we are always working together. So there's some days we'll have 15 people out here when we have work days, other days very few. So you know, it's a matter of upkeep, especially in the summer when it's really hot and we need to water and the weeds are taking over. So there needs to be a lot of communication, which we're working on and is always a struggle, but we've gotten better at. And I guess that's something else that you kind of take out of the garden is kind of you know, having to communicate and work with other people and work as a group.
Last summer, water was a terrible problem. We had a very hot, dry summer, and a number of people said, I didn't join the garden to haul water, but that's what it needed at the time. So that's a challenge. It's just, we have a well, we have a cistern. We try to take as much water as possible from the cistern, which we capture off a roof of a shed from this former little farmstead, and pump that up here to a garden cistern from which we distribute it to the plants. So watering is an issue all the time.
it's turned out to be even greater than I thought, you know. I mean, I really wondered, you know, about cooperation and if people have different skills or more skills. There doesn't seem to be any problem with that. You know, everyone can find a place, you know, whatever you can do to work here is appreciated.
It's great to see the gardens proliferating around town. There are now a number of them in Chapel Hill and Carrboro, from the Hope Garden to the Campus Garden to a number of community gardens. I hope that a lot more people take advantage of the opportunity because we're always looking for new people to join us here.
It's very peaceful out here. I enjoy my time out here. I enjoy the physical labor that's involved and what you get out of it, and just being more in touch with where my food is coming from. Okay. So I encourage others to at least give it a try, even if you don't know anything about gardening. I knew nothing about gardening, very little about gardening when I first joined this about 3 years ago, and I have learned just tons through the other people in the garden.
Something I love out here is that we share our knowledge of how to garden and grow food, and I think if I did it by myself, it would not be nearly this diverse.
This is a wonderful venue, from plants growing and birds singing and people working. It's a great place to be.
Coming out is the important thing to do, and there are so many benefits on so many levels, as well as being part of a community, and then having the immediate satisfaction of bringing home delicious, fresh food.
I'd love to get some Carrboro artists, perhaps, you know, that would come out here and do some paintings when things are in bloom, and maybe have, you know, a collection of those paintings of this particular garden or a particular kind of plant. You know, there's always that part of it too.